I grew up in the Cayman Islands. I grew up catching fries out there and fishing with a line. I was one of those heritage kids. I grew up as an at-risk kid. My father spent a lot of my childhood in prison. My mother worked 3 jobs to support 3 children. I grew up as a latchkey kid. I went home, obviously no one at home, and I was preparing my own meals. I wanted to share with you a story about a good friend of mine. And in her journey, I'm going to highlight to you what I face every day along with hundreds of professionals within the government and outside the government. Tina's story highlights what many of her children experience every single day and have the courage sometimes to walk into a school and are often misunderstood. When Tina was 8, Tina was molested. That's a major thing in our country. Child abuse is a major thing, but we don't talk about it because everything's so hush-hush. So we don't talk, we don't discuss, we don't plan. So a lot of our kids go through a lot of this trauma every day, and it leads to chaos in their lives. So at 8, she was molested. This lasted until she was 12. Tina didn't tell anyone because she knew no one would believe her. This is in the 80s, early 90s, right, where it wasn't developed here. At 13, to suppress it, she starts to smoke marijuana. And like most of the kids that I deal with, this is the first thing that they start. They start to smoke marijuana. And Tina did that very often because she didn't want to think anymore. She went through a traumatic abuse, like hundreds of her children. She didn't want to discuss anything to deal with that abuse. So, like most of our kids, 14, guess what happens to Tina? She gets pregnant. People aren't shocked because that's the norm. See, she's a throwaway. See, people knew that Tina was going through a lot of different crises in her life, but we don't say nothing because it doesn't affect us. So she gets pregnant. 15, she gives birth. And when, in those days, in the 80s, we just put girls out of school, right? They didn't stay in school. But Tina was different from many other young people that I know. She was intelligent. She voiced her opinion. She was ruthless in terms of expressing herself. So she challenged the education system. She won her case. Because Tina made it known that, you know something? Why is the guy not being put out of school? Why are males not being put out of school? You're penalizing us. You're not penalizing them. The system's unfair. And those days, the 80s, there was no law, right? We just went on hunch, and because it happens to poor people, no one questions it. So, to escape, guess what happens to Tina? She tries crack for the first time and likes it. This is what I deal with every single day. I have parents calling me, emailing me, texting me, because their kids are strung out. They don't know what to do. And there were warning signs. There were warning signs. When they start telling me the story from birth to 10, and I start to track it, and I said, you didn't see that warning sign? You didn't see that one? You didn't see that one? They don't see it until this happens. And then all of a sudden they paid attention. So, for 30 years, Tina lived a life of crack, addiction, prison, pregnancy, abuse. A lot of our kids go through it every single day. And when I talk about it, people think that he's just too passionate. They rub it off as a, I'm dismissed. So, at 17 years old, Tina's a full-time mom, full-time student, full-time employee. Stress. She's developing an addiction. Time to leave school. So she doesn't really make the grade. She graduates. Like most of our kids, we just push them through. We don't really care one way or another if they make the grade. We just want them out. We don't want to deal with them anymore. They're problems for us in the school system. We just know she's a throwaway. She's been pregnant. She's got problems. We don't want her in school, so we give her some sort of education. We pass her on. Tina's aspirations is to become a lawyer. She don't make the grade, so that's put on hold. It's done. It's finished for her. Kids like her, they don't aspire to be much more. And I deal with hundreds where we have to make them dream beyond, where we have to ensure that their dreams don't die. Tina was one of those dreams that her dream died. So Tina's addiction gets worse. Tina's addiction turns to alcohol. She's addicted to alcohol at 18. 19, she's homeless. Parents got enough. She's a full-on drunk. She doesn't take care of her child. She comes home late. She's unruly. She's disrespectful. She doesn't listen. So they put her out. She's kicking on the street, having sex, drinking and drugging. I deal with this every day, every single day. And that's not understatement. That's facts. Folks, I will tell you that is horrible. It's a horrible feeling when you have a child that ends up in a house like this, a crack house. Picture it. Picture your child. For those of you who have, I have 4. Picture your child ending up like this. Tina lived in that with a lot of people. Her addictions will always continue. So for 10 years, Tina was doing crack. She was living on the road, and her addictions fought hard. And then the inevitable starts to happen. Prison, jail. See, because that's what we do. When we get tired of people falling down drunk, we start to arrest them. Because we need statistics to prove that we're doing something. So she became a statistic, prison. Tina's aspirations of becoming a lawyer is now gone. She had a glimpse. Didn't really graduate high school well, but she was smart enough. Now it's gone. That's what happens to a lot of our kids. It's snuffed out. Because we fall asleep at the wheel. We stop listening. We stop pushing. We stop praying with them. We stop inspiring them. All we do is criticize. We hire more police officers. We expand our prison system. We get more attorneys. We're going to build a bigger courthouse. And we're going to fill it. So Tina's son, at one point, Tina and her son was in prison. I'm 43 years old, and I am almost on my 3rd generation of children that I have dealt with from the time I got my degree in 95. Of children that have come through the system and are ending up in the prison system. I'm my 3rd generation, and I'm 43. Of children that I dealt with as a young social worker. Their children and their children's children. This is what we're dealing with today. So Tina's son and her were in prison. Whether she was in prison at one time, he was in prison at one time, and then they were both in prison, and then the inevitable happens. He joins a gang, and he finds a gun, and he uses it. And guess what we do to those folks? At 25, he's convicted of murder, and he's serving life. That's what we do. This is the trend. This is what we do. And this is what I live, and I've lived this for 26 years. Tina told me on a 4-month or 6-month period, she was arrested 5 times. Every time she walked out of jail, she was arrested. It didn't matter if she was on bail, she was arrested. She told me that she became so desensitized to crime, and this is what I've experienced with a lot of our kids now. They don't even care. They don't even care if crime is happening around them. They don't care. They would walk over your corpse and move on. They've become so desensitized to what's happening. Because they play violent video games and they think that stuff is all real. They will drive over you. They will walk across you. You say anything to them, they become disrespectful. They become annoyed. Their fuses are short. Over the last 5 years, over 1,000 crimes have been committed by over 300 children in our country. Fact. Out of that 300 plus children, 43 of those died from gangs. 20 alone in West Bay. Just imagine, I buried kids. I have visited a child or children in every lockup in our country. Northwood Prison, Westville lockup, Georgetown lockup, now the new lockup that we just built. I remember sitting down after one of my kids got shot, fatally shot by a gang hit, sitting down trying to console his mom. And I dealt with a boy from 6. He was highlighted as an at-risk kid, and we did nothing. I knew he was going to eventually die. 4,000 people in our country have been diagnosed with a mental illness. Over 500 plus are children under the age of 18. We did a survey several years ago, and 192 kids seriously thought about killing themselves. Over 100 made a plan, 51 tried. And we still have not gotten an institution or a facility to house children. Fact. I visited kids on the ward that they've just tried to kill themselves, and no one actually supervises those kids. We put them on a pediatric ward or the medical ward. We just leave them. No one sits beside them. I have shipped more kids out of this country than FedEx. Sending children over my 6 years of working in education. I've sent more children overseas to get help. We've paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I have said, give me 10% of that to just give more kids more access. I begged and pleaded with the government, just give me more so I can do more. 472 kids, based on the survey that happened a couple of years ago, said that they've had sex before the age of 14. 60% of our children say that they've never talked to you as their parent about sex. It's a fact. 50 children a year are born from teenage moms between the ages of 15 and 19. An average of 50 kids in the last 5 or 6 years. And a lot of those kids I know, because I've dealt with them over the last 25 years of my career. It's a fact. 290 kids, according to this survey, have said, I've smoked marijuana at least once in my lifetime. Over 300 plus have said that I've drank alcohol in the last 12 months of the survey. Now, I brought this up here because I try to make sure that people have a clear understanding of where I'm coming from. That I don't just come in here and spout stuff out and I can't back it. This is all of the documentation since 2000. I only went back to 2000. There are a lot more pre-2000. All the major reports that we've commissioned in the Cayman Islands. There are more, but I've collected 3 of the more serious ones. 8 national reports that we've commissioned on crime. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in flying in loads of different consultants. 90% of that have never been touched or implemented. They've spent more money on me, sending me all over the world to look at programs, policies. I've had to turn around and raise money for the same programs that they sent me overseas for. That's the frustration, and it makes me angry. And I want you to be angry with me.
Yeah.
I want you to get angry to the point where you get involved, because you need to start doing something. There's no white knight that's going to get off of Cayman Airways and come and help us. None. And I don't care what none of them say. I have not heard not one minister in the last 20 years talked about addressing this, or even have a plan. And I'm not political. I dislike politicians, because I have dealt with too many of them. But at the end of the day, the resources is right in front of me. And they're simple fixes. You have to now admit, we have a problem here. And you have to face the fact that that problem isn't going to go away. And you have to stop relying on someone to come in and fix it. See, we fix it with police, prison, and the court system. All it takes is to reach out to a child or a family. You know who they are. You pass them every day. They live probably right down the road. We don't need millions here. We need time from you. Support vulnerable parents. This is the stuff that are easy. This don't take money. I managed a skate park. I started working at the skate park as a volunteer. The park was littered with drugs. We cleaned it up in 4 years, and now we have almost 3,000 kids flowing through the park. And I'm a volunteer. And I do it night, weekends, and holidays. And if I can do this with 4 children in 3 different schools, dude, anyone can do this stuff. You just need half of a heart. You don't even need a full heart of this. You don't even need to be passionate about this stuff. In a nation of 60,000 people, we have high percentages of crime, mental illness, teenage pregnancy, unemployability, lack of education, and I can list it and list it and list it. And it's all in here. I didn't write anything in here. None at all. None of this is from Myles. This is one of my favorite quotes. And I'll leave you with this. It's easier to build strong children and repair broken men. And this has been a guide, a beacon for me. Because I am tired of repairing broken men. I've gotten to the point where it's not part of my vocabulary anymore. I'm jumping ahead. I don't sit down, I'm not a planner anymore, I'm an implementer. I don't sit down and plan with people anymore, because to me it's a waste of my time. Don't call me to plan anything. Call me when you want to do something. It's always a privilege to converse and talk and share. I hope that I have given you enough to spark, because that's what it takes here. It doesn't take millions of dollars like those folks in the LA would tell you. It doesn't take that. It doesn't take more police or more prisons and so forth. All it takes is you reaching out to one of our young people, reaching out to a family, a mom who's struggling to make ends meet, and with no judgment. That's all it takes. And you can change people's lives. And they're not going to be perfect, folks. Don't ask them to be. Don't ask them to be you. Meet them where they are. A wise man once told me that. Michael, meet them where they are. Don't meet them where you want them to be. It's been an honor and a privilege. Thank you.